no longer news that Nigeria's oil sector cannot sustain its economy. What is news is how the government plans to fund the economy from within. While a number of sectors come to mind as options for diversification, generating income through taxation is top on government's list. I'm Onyi Sunday, and you're watching Nigeria Going Beyond Oil. Today's focus is on corporate compliance with paying company income tax and value-added taxes. Now, you may have come across this public notice in the local papers informing every company, including those not liable to pay tax, with the financial year end of December to file their taxes on or before June 30, 2016. Now, while the government has taken steps to notify companies of what's expected of them come June 30, 2016, it is most important to note that the sensitization campaign has been up and running in the last 6 months. Well, just in case you missed it, let's help you understand what this is all about. Raising of revenue to meet government expenditure is the key function of any tax administration. In the absence of taxes, the federal and state government's ability to meet their obligation to the states and country can be seriously impaired. Over the years, taxes have not played a major role in the affairs of Nigeria's administration. With proceeds from oil came an overdependence on the commodity and little attention to taxes.
I think it's a little bit of our system and our culture because in the time past, we've never seen tax as a major and a sustainable source of revenue for the nation because we had alternative. And so companies just get incorporated, they do their businesses, nobody asks them for their tax clearance certificate before they get businesses done, and so they don't really see any need for them to pay taxes, so they don't come on board.
The Nigerian government is embarking on a massive drive to diversify its economy. Top on its list is to diversify and boost internally generated revenue through taxes. While Nigeria has a number of taxes, the company income tax is of utmost importance. It is a 30% charge on profits made by a company and assessed on a preceding year basis. Backed by law, companies are mandated to file returns not later than 18 months from the date of incorporation or 6 months after the financial year end of the company.
It is the requirement of the law that companies that are incorporated in Nigeria, whether they are liable to pay company income tax or not, they are to file tax returns in compliance with the Company Income Tax Act. And there are categories of companies that are just being newly incorporated and the companies that are being in existence. The companies that are just being newly incorporated are expected to file returns not later than 18 months from the date of incorporation or 6 months after the year end of the company. Whereas the companies that are being in existence are to file their returns and pay not later than 6 months after the year end of that organization. The year end I'm referring to is the financial year end, the months to which they made their accounts to. And in most cases in Nigeria, more than 70–75% of companies have their year end 31st December.
In filing tax returns, financial reports must be prepared, a complete self-assessment form submitted, and a declaration of the company's turnover and expenses. While this may be common knowledge, the low rate of corporate compliance poses a question on how well companies understand the tax process.
They do understand, and some are not complying just because they don't feel like complying. Some are also not complying because they probably don't even know how to go about the process of complying. In terms of compliance, before we came on board, pretty low. The number of people paying taxes are low. Company income tax also compliance very low. Like I said, compliance less than 10% but we're trying to push hard, and we set for ourselves a target of 90% minimum compliance level, and we believe this is achievable, and that's why we are going all out. And to achieve that, we're doing various things to ensure that we achieve that. One of what we've done is educating taxpayers to know that they need to pay taxes, to let them know that if we don't pay these taxes, there's no way we can sustain this nation called Nigeria. That is one. Two, also, we're trying to also do a back duty audit of those who have failed to file their taxes in the time past, and we are working with tax consultants to ensure that we achieve this. Aside from that as well, also, we have our own also audit department also will be going out as well to ensure that taxpayers meet their obligations.
I would say the level of compliance has increased over time. Awareness on tax has increased. You can't just avoid to play around, not doing what you're supposed to do from tax perspective. So most companies are now trying to be up and doing in their tax affairs. And that has really been so much of an achievement that the current administration have been able to do. It's no more like business as usual. So you have to pick your taxes and make sure you're right on time.
Understanding is very, very basic. If you look at the Companies Income Tax Act, it has quite a number of assumptions, which may not necessarily be correct. The assumption is that the companies they are fairly large and they have structure. They can keep documents. They have officers who understand the tax law and all that. These are ideals in my own viewpoint. And that is why you see a situation where companies largely are not doing what they are supposed to do. If you do a computation or you do an analysis of companies that are very compliant, they are in a single digit in terms of percentage. So I appreciate the current effort to widen the net, but this is really, really challenging. I think part of our reform agenda should include simplification of the system so that the tax administrators can be easier.
Companies incorporate on a regular basis, and they are also required to file returns. But on what does a newly incorporated company that hasn't made any profit file a return?
They file a statement of affairs. Statement of affairs simply means that, okay, what are the activities that have taken place for this organization? Yes, you have not been engaged in any business, but this company was incorporated and some expenses had been incurred, the cost of incorporation, the cost of renting an office. You've been doing one thing or the other. And in doing this, you will have incurred one expense or the other. Then you will have paid at least VAT, because at the point of renting a commercial office, the rent you are paying, there will be VAT that will come on it. All these ones have to be declared and put in the record. And if you are into manufacturing, the day you start, you acquire a land for your industry, you start to import equipment, you start to incur, and all these ones for you to be able to claim your capital allowances at the time you commence business, you have to accumulate this and be reporting them in phases as they occur.
While VAT receipts from rent paid and VATable items bought for the business can be filed as part of statements of affairs, not every building owner or trader in Nigeria includes VATs or issues VAT receipts. Now, buyers have a choice to purchase non-VATable items. In most cases, both buyers and traders do not know what is VATable or not. In other cases, traders argue they will not include VATs until tax administrators ensure VAT is charged on all items sold.
It's a question of reality. Enforcing VAT at the retail stage is still very, very difficult, because basically the retail stage is still informal. Informal in the sense that many of the people who play at that level, they are not within the tax net. Initially, a moratorium was given 3 years after the introduction of VAT. 3 years lapsed in 1996. So between 1996 and now, that's exactly 20 years ago. We are still struggling to. So that is why we really need to come up with a system that people can connect with and which will be administrable.
You can't invoice VAT if you're not registered. So you first of all have to start from registration, and then when you have your TIN now, before you used to have your VAT registration, and now you don't need to go through that. You have your TIN, and then you have a VAT invoice. Now there are punishment, let's say penalties, for not giving a VAT invoice. There are also penalties for you not registering for VAT. So those are some of the things that people look into and says, is it worth going through all this? But I think what the tax authority should do is to encourage people. I do say that we need to jointly make this country to be what it should be by being a good citizen in terms of our tax compliance, in terms of our tax payment, and making sure that we encourage others to do that.
We added over close to 400,000 corporate taxpayers within 100 days. And every month by law, they're supposed to remit VAT and withholding tax. At no point in time have more than 50,000 corporate entities remitted or paid VAT on a monthly basis to FIRS. So that shows you that in terms of compliance, we have less than a 7% compliance rate.
Nigeria's Federal Tax Administrators, through its Federal Engagement Enlightenment Team, is on a continuous enlightenment campaign to educate business owners on how and why they need to meet their tax obligations. Now that we're up to speed with what's expected, it is important to note that June 30, 2016 remains the deadline for every company, including those not liable to pay tax with a financial year end of December, to file self-assessment returns and pay their taxes. Well, if you haven't paid by now, you're kind of late. When Nigeria Going Beyond Oil returns, we'll take a look at companies to check out how compliant they are and their experiences with filing their taxes in Nigeria. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Nigeria Going Beyond Oil. Now, before the break, we tried to bring you up to speed with what the company income tax and VATs are about and what's expected of companies come June 30, 2016. But how easy is it to file taxes in Nigeria? Nigeria's tax administrators are also working to reduce the frequency of visits to the various tax offices. Tax officers now take self-assessment forms to the companies and in some cases explain what is expected of them. Companies are also free to visit various tax offices where designated desks with experienced personnel attend to tax-related matters.
Recently, we had some taxpayers that complained that they have to travel a long distance before they can get to the nearest tax office. And that was because before now, we have a segmentation. We have what we call the large tax office, we have medium tax offices. And so sometimes a large taxpayer might find out that there is no large tax office very close to where it is. But what this administration has done is to have said that now the taxpayer now has a right to choose the nearest tax office where he can pay taxes. And what we said is that we are looking at not traveling more than a maximum of 30 minutes for you to get to the nearest tax office. So these are some of the things that was happening before, and we are trying to make sure we remove now. Apart from that also is the fact that before now, a number of them also have difficulty in understanding the taxes itself. They don't know when it is due, they don't know when to file. So we're trying to also educate them more about this also, to let them know when their taxes are due. We send out circulars very regularly now. We do also a campaign in various languages. We do it in Hausa, Yoruba, English, Igbo, and even Pidgin English, to bring them to understanding of why they need to pay the taxes, the type of taxes they need to pay, and when to pay those taxes.
Chijoke Uwebute, General Electric's tax director for West and Central Africa, says electronic filing will make the process a lot easier.
So I was in consulting for about 12 years before I moved to GE, and you know, for me, June 30 is always the craziest day of the year, and for some reason it always rains on that day. I don't know why. So, you know, you have to physically carry a tax return to the FIRS office. You know, back in the day, would have to get on a bike at times to be able to meet that deadline. So you'd find out that the manual filing system, you know, is something that I find very challenging, and I would think that it would do the FIRS a lot of service to be able to take us to an electronic filing system. I mean, one, it's going to be easier to file your tax returns, but I think in terms of monitoring compliance, it's also going to be a lot easier for the FIRS, because obviously, think of things like your withholding tax credit notes. Now, this is obviously cash. This is cash that if I don't get my credit notes in time, I will have to pay the tax to the FIRS, you know, and then have to start chasing out the credit notes. So if I had an electronic filing system that I'll be able to track payments made on my behalf by, you know, my customers, then it's a lot easier for me to then be able to tell the FIRS, look, I've paid this amount of taxes, this amount of taxes has been withheld from me, and I'm able to then tell you that this is the balance I need to pay to you. The FIRS also would have a snapshot of what my tax position would be. So it makes the reconciliation process a whole lot easier.
I must commend the FIRS. They've tried to do a lot, trying to make the tax office to be closer to the taxpayers, but I think it could be better. Everybody's used to online payment. E-filing was what we all were waiting for when the whole idea came. But apparently we don't know what's happening yet. We had some companies have been tested, but we saw quite a lot of gaps that needs to be filled, which I felt probably that was why there's a slowdown on the process, because once you click a button, it's gone. The question is, will you be able to correct? Will you be able to retrieve? Those are areas that people will want to know how to do. Now I file a return now. I have maybe one or two things that I need to amend. I can still say I want to do an amended return and then explain what is the difference, which makes it easier for me.
We clearly understand that in FIRS, and we've started to automate most sectors. We have started with the airlines. Right now, anytime you buy your ticket, your VAT portion is remitted straight to the Federation account. We've also started with power. We're starting with the hospitality sector in the next month or two. And slowly we're getting into relationships with the private sector that are providing technology to make sure that very soon, in terms of your tax payment, it will be done and deducted at source.
To encourage compliance, self-assessment forms have been reduced to one page. Companies that are unable to pay before the due date have an option to pay in installments. All installments must be paid by the due date with evidence of the first installment's payment.
Even where you intend to apply for instrumental payment, you have to start doing it even before the due date. And by now, for most companies that have their year end, 31st December, is overdue for them to start the paying on instrumental basis.
According to some tax consultants, having a reliant tax system is a major incentive to boost corporate compliance.
Because quite a number of them will tell you, why do I need to pay taxes? And their reason will stem from issues like government does not do anything for me, I fix my road, I provide my electricity and stuff like that. But we always say it's a chicken and egg kind of a thing. Which one comes first? You see, no matter what happens, if we do not pay our taxes, there will be no money available for government to do what they have promised or they will do. Yeah, I agree there has been a trust deficit in the time past. People have paid taxes and they cannot see what is happening. But we have a new administration in town now, and one thing that we know is going very well for that administration is the fact that the generality of Nigerians has trust and confidence in that administration.
In spite of 6 months' notice, most companies still do the crazy dance, filing their taxes on the last day, the 30th of June.
It's typically the finalization of the financials, because you need to have a set of signed audited financials to be able to file a tax return. Now, for the most part, your tax filing is not the biggest thing on the mind of the auditors at the time they're doing their audit. The most important thing for them is to get the correct audit done. So you might find people who are still, trying to finalize their returns. It falls into June, and you're literally signing off a day or two before the tax filing deadline. So such companies would then find themselves in that position. It can also be like the approvals as well. Approving the tax returns, getting the money, the funds in. It's just a myriad of factors. I can tell you that no company ever sets out to file a tax return on the 30th of June. No company does that. So if I look at GE, for instance, GE, we started our planning last year. Now our audits are done for the most part, and the financials have been finalized. So it's just essentially for us to proceed with the tax filings. But you typically see these kind of issues across board. But I can assure you, nobody wants the pressure of June 30.
Perhaps the 6 months' notice is inadequate.
In some countries, it's April. So, like I said, I deal with the region, and so my tax season starts in March, okay? My tax season starts in March with Cameroon, April, Equatorial Guinea, and Chad. So some countries are even more strict with their deadlines because the timelines are really short.
The law allows a period of 6 months after the year end, the accounting year end, which I think is quite generous, because there are some other taxes where you have to file within a regimented period, from the 1st of January to 31st of December. You have, for example, petroleum profit tax is on current year basis. It's even based on estimate. So the real issue is, if the enforcement is lax, people will wait till the last minute.
There are calls for companies that remain compliant in spite of the challenges associated with filing taxes to be encouraged.
Perhaps we can experiment with an incentive regime whereby those who file early will get some incentives. There used to be a time when for filing your return on your own, but for undertaking self-assessment, there is a bonus of 1%. That has since been abolished since 2007, which is okay. But the recommendation I'm making now is, because of time value of money, in order to encourage some people to file early, we may also consider certain form of incentives.
If you've kind of put cooperative compliance as one of your watchwords to say, okay, I'm going to identify a couple of companies who have looked at from their risk profile, and what they've done over their track record over the years. These are companies that I can step down the audit process for, because they're paying their taxes as always. So if there's, I would say, a mindset change. If you have a mindset change around the audit process to say, let's encourage companies to comply. Let's do a risk assessment around these companies that are actually complying, and probably then have an abridged audit procedure for them based on their compliance records. If you could do that, first of all, it frees up your resources to focus on other companies who are not at that level.
Punitive measures against non-compliant companies are yet to be seen. Besides shutting down businesses belonging to defaulters, tougher steps may be required.
You'll be shocked to understand that the penalties and fines remain what it was. Penalties and fines remain what they were in 1979 or 1961 until 2007, when they were reviewed. But the lesson is that we don't have to wait for 30 years before we review the penalties and fines that are currently in the law. This is something we must do on periodic basis.
While enforcement plays an important role in ensuring compliance, Nigeria's Federal Inland Revenue Service is committed to educate companies. The FIRS is on a drive to increase the number of companies in its database. In under a year, Nigeria's tax administrator has added 700,000 companies to its database.
That tells me we can do it, because the more of these people that we get on the database, the more the compliance level is going to be. The more we make it difficult for them to evade taxation, the more the compliance is going to be. We also have a GIFMIS platforms, which is a medium whereby governments, parastatals, and agencies are paid. And we are working with the Office of the Accountant General to ensure that no MDAs is able to pay a contractor without having to deduct the withholding tax that is due and the VAT that is due also. And let me add that this is going to be done automatically as well. We are also leveraging on technology.
The importance of taxes to any economy cannot be overemphasized. The need to get every company on board and ensure compliance is more important than ever. Remember, June 30, 2016 remains the deadline for every company with a fiscal year end of December to file their returns. I suggest you hurry before the taxman makes you scurry. I wrote that poem. Well, I'm Onyi Sunday, and you've been watching Nigeria Going Beyond Oil. You can stay engaged by commenting on our Facebook page, Nigeria Going Beyond Oil, or follow my handle at Onyi Sunday. Thank you so much for watching.